checking on some slangs for Gen Alpha. Brace yourself. Better get this right. First one for Dr. Swati. GRWM. What does it stand for?
I have another one for you. Cookie.
No, first you answer.
I mean, you can just make up things, right? And then blame it on Gen Z and Gen Alpha. No, I don't keep up with these trends.
Namrata, for you. Sus.
Ah, should have given that to me. I have
You
so
know
much
this.
suspicious.
Okay, good job. Okay, I'm going to give you an easy one. Snatch.
Snatch.
Yeah.
No idea.
Anybody knows what snatch? Anybody wants to raise hands?
Even he doesn't know.
That's
You don't know?
That's
Okay,
not easy.
clearly. I'm raising two, so I know how this works. You don't know what snatch is? Give up, everybody. So snatch means like really sick. Like my makeup is so snatched today. Like, you know, that's how Gen Z would use it. Huh?
That's slay, he's saying.
Okay. No, but even snatched. Like this looks so snatched. Like that. Okay. And the last one, which my girls use very often. Don't RB me now. Anybody knows what's RB? Anybody? No? Rage bait?
Rage bait, yes. Of
Yeah?
course.
Okay. How many know rage bait? Come on, raise your hand. Okay. Amazing. Okay. So with that, now that I know that you guys are awake, I am going to start this very pertinent discussion. I think this was so incredibly important. Thank you, ASCI, for this report. Thank you, Sunil, for all the amazing stuff that you've shared. The presentation looks brilliant because I think this is so very important. I love the last bit where you actually mentioned about, you know, typically when I do workshops and things, it's always either technology is to be blamed or the second part is parents need to be blamed. But nobody has spoken about ever educating and empowering the parent with knowledge. So I'm very glad that this conversation is happening today. I'm going to start with, you know, whoever wants to answer this, which is the report suggests that Gen Alpha is growing up in an ecosystem where content, commerce, gaming, social interaction are all intertwined, unlike previous generation. When you look at this generation, what is that one shift that you believe adults, whether parents, educators, or brands, are still underestimating of this generation?
So, Madhav, you have a point?
They are underestimating their child's Minecraft skill, gaming skill.
Okay, Madhav's bias. He just wants all the approvals to happen while his dad is on the panel. That's typically child behavior. कि जब मम्मी phone पे होती है, पापा phone पे होते हैं, you get all the approvals. But Madhav, I am the mother of two and I know how to deal with this problem. Okay, Sunil, over to you.
I think first sort of underestimation is around the imagination of content that we all that when we started working on this project we also had, you know, as analysts sort of, you know, looking at it, we thought, you know, content is something that they consume. It is, you know, they're given whatever 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, depending on the family, etc., and they are out of it. But then we realized, you know, it is not the content that gets consumed. It's not a one-way kind of stream. It has become their world that they kind of inhabit. And, you know, it's the system. So content as a system overall, that system has multiple sort of moving parts. There's algorithm, there's commerce included in it, there's influence in it. So, you know, I think parents still think that the child is watching something which looks like a child content, which is actually, I think they should realize that there's much more, all the like social skills they're picking up there. For example, this very interesting sort of behavior that we picked about streaming as an idea, right? Where they want something ambient to be there, some ambient presence, which indicates that, you know, that it's a new kind of socialization if you think about it, because otherwise they are not getting to play so much with their friends, with their peer group. But still, you know, it's a core human need to socialize, to have someone around, to have other human beings around. So just that streamer, it just doesn't matter what the streamer is saying in the background, but there's some constant presence there. You know, that's the kind of socialization that is happening there. The second bit that I want to, I mean, and it's because, and I'll speak from sometimes from parents' point of view, sometimes from kids, and sometimes from brands, because I have a couple of vantage points there. So when it comes to parents, I think there's another sort of misnomer. This screen time as an idea, again, you know, it kind of, you know, because parents feel that screen time restrict kar their 50 as a unit of engaging with this world. I think is incorrect. We should be looking at what is happening in that screen time. Instead of 15 minutes, a child can have a screen time for 15 minutes and still have devastating kind of effect, versus a child who's using screen time more constructively can be much more sort of this thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
one more point, if I may, which is the idea of, I think, the smartness and the smart kids, where we tend, and it becomes a slightly unidimensional idea. We've started to celebrate this bright kids, smarter kids in the context of this new age Gen Alpha. But the other aspects, the emotional aspects, the emotional patterns that are being developed by engaging with the content, those get missed out. So that's another thing that we are underestimating.
I feel that when kids are constantly engaging with this content, which is fast paced, it's got so much of stimulation, the colors, the fonts, the sounds. It's in many ways rewiring your internal setting. And you see, at least for me, a very disturbing sense of restlessness that's all pervasive in their attention, in the behavior, in the way they are feeling. So it's just a hyper state of being that they are in constantly. And I think that's what we're not possibly seeing the impact or understanding the impact of it fully as yet.
Absolutely. Typically when I do a lot of workshops in schools on screens and understanding child behavior, I ask all the parents and, educators in the room, how many of you all know what or who your children are following? Like, because that person is literally shaping your child's belief systems, their value systems, their work ethics, their demands, their, everything being so aesthetic, which is like a word by itself for them. So if I was to just randomly ask parents of kids in Gen Alpha kids, or even educators or anybody else who in the childcare space, anybody knows who are the most popular YouTubers or creators that your children are following? No, you are not to answer this question. Anybody? Anybody? No. This is a problem. Because if you don't know who's influencing your child, it's going to be a big, big problem. And that's where the whole show Adolescence actually stemmed from, which was parents were not aware that their child was actually following Andrew Tate, who's known for being this whole misogynist persona. So I would just say that check in who your child is following. And each one of us, parents, educators, stakeholders, we all need to be aware, because only then we will be able to catch it very early on. Dr. Swati, coming to you, what risks arise when young audiences cannot distinguish between entertainment, recommendation, advertising? And should advertising literacy primarily be responsibility of the schools, or is it something families and societies must address? This question was meant for bashing. So go on.
So first of all, I would like to urge everybody, the whole world, to stop calling children kids.
Yeah.
That's a slang. Goats have kids, humans have children. When we start doing that, we'll start respecting them, their content, what we brand, what kind of things we give them, etc. To a large extent, let's see how children grow up with screens. A child cries, parent doesn't know how to stop him or her from crying, so a screen is given in their hand. You take them for an injection, a child is going to cry or be in pain, give them a screen in their hand. Child is throwing a tantrum, doesn't calm down, give them a screen in their hand. So what did you teach them from childhood? You taught them that connection to screens is much better than connection to humans. So no wonder as they grow older, they're going to be seeking out screens more often. And they're going to believe screens more often because they are connected to screens emotionally. Because when I needed you emotionally, you gave me a screen. So I don't know why as a society, we look for problems only in teenagers and we wait for them to become teenagers. I have purposely kept my entire career of 40 years in education in the early years, because that's the stage that we ignore the most. It all starts from there. So when we talk about content, how do we make them literate? It starts with a simple literacy lesson in the classroom. Many of you must be having very young toddlers and children who go to nursery schools, and they teach them a rhyme of the traffic light. Red says the red light and green says stop and all. How many of these toddlers drive? But we never teach them rhymes, songs, or stories, how to stay safe from screens. We're not telling them that this is something that you need to be safe from. So if you're watching a screen, take a break. If you're watching a screen, take a break. I mean, imagine if a child grew up with a song being sung like this by the parent, by the teacher. The child would grow up with a essence, a literacy, a sense of digital literacy. That this is not something that's a toy. This is not something that's going to become my friend, and I can't trust everything it says. And when we talk about content or advertising that children are watching, parents have skipped a stage called co-viewing. So when the children were young and you co-viewed content with them and you commented while the content was going on that I would never do something like this and I wouldn't want you to do something like this because it's so wrong, that child will grow up to be a Gen Alpha or a Gen Z or a millennial to be careful about what they are watching.
Yeah.
So I think we are skipping stages and then watching the child go through all that. And then suddenly one day we are waking up and saying, oh dear, they are addicted. Oh dear, they are not having any sense. We recently released something called a cell phone contract. So this is for parents. Before you give a phone in the child's hand, you and the child sign a contract. It's something like making the child aware that this is a tool. This is not something that you can just take for granted.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important for us to understand that it's okay to identify they have this problem, they become a digital native and etc., etc. But are we preparing them with that literacy?
Yeah.
So that should be something that we should be aiming for.
Right. Absolutely. I want to ask, how many people here set up their child's phones? And you set it up as a minor's phone? The hands went down. Like she has a contract. We call it something called the golden hour of handing your child a phone, where we give you exactly the steps to set up so that all apps, including the operating system, understands that this is a minor's
Minor.
account. And therefore, what can be shown and what cannot be shown. We cannot safeguard against everything, but
Yeah.
and why are we restricting it to phones? We're talking even of OTT services or any of that where it all kinds of come together. At what age, Namrata, should children begin learning to recognize advertising and persuasive messaging? And should advertising literacy be a separate subject? Again, coming back to education.
I think Dr. Swati kind of set the tone for that already, and she says that maybe we should start as early as where we are.
Absolutely.
So yes, it can start early. I think creating the right message for the right age group will be critical. So while you teach children you first at that age, possibly through rhymes that teach overall safety, but then you get deeper and more specific as you go along
Right.
in the programs.
Right.
depending
Sunil,
on the age.
for you, what can advertisers and agencies do to ensure that advertising directed at younger audiences is responsible and transparent? And could advertising literacy actually strengthen trust in brands rather than weaken it?
Yeah, I think some bits of it even food farmers spoke about, and I feel that's a couple of things, one, advertising today is not just message creation, advertising is experience design, because advertising, is earlier, it used to be just announcing something. Now it resides in algorithm, as Namrata's kind of presentation made that point. It is kind of, it's almost like, it's how memes travel, for example, there's a meme that starts in US, it kind of travels, modifies itself and travels. And that's how, advertising is also need to be designed, in specific manners because of that. I just feel, till the time transparency becomes a business imperative, it's very difficult. It'll always be a CSR activity, for brands, which never works. So till the time it becomes a, and there's a possibility that I see this. I'm very hopeful actually with this generation, because have the advantage of seeing them up close from a content kind of point of view, because they have a facility which we I mean they I mean, one, they're very good with expressing themselves. They're good with understanding. There's a second order sort of understanding of themselves that they have, right? So if you see the idea of self-expression, if you see how they share about their feelings in the moment, they're very good at it. Second, this facility with understanding this sort of machinery that they're engaging with, they've started to, for example, they understand the idea of likes, that this is being done for the likes. This YouTube screen is being made to draw attention in a specific manner. So they are becoming, more aware as consumers. And yesterday, I think Mother pointed out this interesting example of, this zero, this brand of water.
Yeah.
He said, that guy is saying zero sugar, zero something, but he's not saying that this is carbonated, right? So these children will ask questions, and it is in the interest of brands that they give them answers and be transparent, because I feel that ethical transparency won't just be a good to do things, it'll be a business imperative. We've already started to see, in the adult world, we have seen so many brands which are more honest, more sort of truthful about the ingredients, that conversation has begun to happen in the society. So it's only natural that these kids will grow up and ask and call out brands who are opaque, who are trying to manipulate. It's about, I mean, if somebody feels that persuasion can be hidden, it's a myth. I mean, this generation is smart enough to catch that, and they will be called out. But equally, it's a responsibility for the brands to start doing that, start behaving more ethically, start behaving more consciously, start designing those experiences. And for example, the increasingly it will be more invisible. The advertising will be hidden.
Very well integrated, very hard for even adults to figure out.
But you need to design to visibilize. I think that's a imperative for the brands. I mean, and that's how they'll get engagement. Till the time those metric kind of tick their boxes, it's very difficult. Otherwise, they'll always be at odds.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, and to add to that, I recently saw a cartoon which was meant for like, I think 4 to 8-year-olds on television, and it talked about food delivery, and the show was sponsored by a food delivery app. And it was so woven in where the cartoon characters are sort of pestering the mother to, order in food. And it was so seamlessly woven that I don't think anybody who's not probably part of this room or is in the advertising or a similar space would sort of pick it up that this is branded content or this is branded integration. And sometimes I feel, are we expecting too much out of parents because they're also playing and wearing multiple hats? I mean, how much are they supposed to catch? And maybe everything is not your strength. So,
Yeah, exactly. And parents also, I realized, they're very well meaning. They are in today, I mean, no other generation has been so supportive of their children as this generation is of Gen Alpha.
right.
But the thing is, they don't know better. See, that's the thing. What is happening is the content also gets disguised. Earlier, there was a very clear world of, this is children. We used to see Mowgli. We used to see, on Doordarshan, we used to very clearly children content. I'm sorry, doctor. Children content. But now, there's horror. Squid Games, for example. Let's take that example. It's a 18 plus sort of series. Very violent. I'm not sure if you've seen, but parents are co-viewing it with their children, right? So I think somewhere those boundaries are being blurred. What is children content and what is not? Horror is again a huge theme, and again it kind of I fail to understand what's the reason. I mean, and one possible answer we got through this study was that it's a more like an aesthetic layer. They're not interested in horror as an idea, but horror is just a aesthetic kind of that they use, which again is a new language. See, it's a new vocabulary, and we must kind of get deeper into their words to understand where they're coming from. It may not be the idea of horror that we understood.
Right. Dr. Swati, the research points to what it calls as an authority vacuum, which you mentioned, the presentation was amazing. Parents and educators often feel they're struggling to interpret the digital world that children inhabit, while algorithms are constantly curating what children see and believe. How can schools reclaim their role of being that trusted guide in such an environment?
So I would say that parenting per se needs to change. I know you feel that we need to be gentle. Yes, we need to be gentle with parents, but we need to also understand that parenting is a responsibility. It is when parenting becomes, that a societal burden, and then a parent has a child and then doesn't know what to do with the child or the career, and then all the wrong decisions start happening. But I feel you can't put everything on the school.
Yeah.
I know as a school, I wouldn't want to put photographs of children on social media, okay, as an educator. But I have to put by taking their undertaking letter for those who don't want to, because parents say, मेरे बच्चे का photo नहीं डाला आपने, क्यों नहीं डाला? So other schools are putting it. And where do we draw the line? So it's very important for us to understand that everything cannot be left to the school. It has to be a partnership.
Yeah.
Today, schools are also facing a huge problem, because every burden is being put on the school. Teach them manners, teach them morals, teach them ethics. आप घर पे करो ना करो, school में करो बस.
Yes.
No, it doesn't work like that. Schooling is a partnership process. So yes, when we talk about ethics, when we talk about training children on digital literacy, on marketing literacy, if the school has started a project, or if the educational board has started a project, parents need to do it at home. Let me give you an example. The CBSE board recently started something called affirmations. So they said you must start the day with positive affirmations so that children grow up with self-confidence. Because the suicide rates and everything is increasing, you need to build self-esteem. How many parents start their day with their child with an affirmation? It's the first sentence we speak to children as parents when the day starts is, "Jaldi ut, nahi to late ho jayega."
Yeah.
Right? That's the first negative with which we start their day. So it becomes a combination, a relationship that will have to be sustained. It cannot be a passing the parcel that this is now your responsibility, this is my responsibility. That needs to stop. Schools and parents and government need to work together. And I'm against regulation, I'm against banning.
Yeah.
I feel what works is intrinsic. If you are children of today, this age group especially, will find their way out if you're going to put a ban.
Yeah.
They will find their way out. So instead, why don't we teach them what we want and what we don't want them to grow up with, and the why.
Yeah.
Remember, your first question was that what is it that you feel that they are good at?
Yeah.
They are best at two things. They are fast learners and they learn by imitation.
Yeah.
So if you keep these two things in mind, their literacy of any kind can be taken care of. For example, the ads that they are watching or whatever they're doing on their own screen time. I'll tell you, I'm a parenting mentor, and I had a parent of a teenager who comes and tells me that I spy on my child's Facebook page. And I asked her how. She became a girl profile and has become friends with her son. And I just asked her one question, that when your child finds out about this, what's going to happen? You're going to lose trust. Now, it's that one word, trust, is what marketing companies need to understand, that when my client, when my people who buy from me lose that trust, everything is gone. It's that trust, that honesty that we need to teach children.
Right.
And then they will be able to recognize where there is no trust, where there is no honesty. So I think it starts basically from that kind of an education. And we need to stop worrying if we've taught them right, because they are going to live in this world. A lot of people say, what are schools going to teach? They don't know the future. And I tell them, when I was in kindergarten, my teacher didn't know I will have to use AI. So she taught me for the present. She taught me human values. And that's what today's teacher or parent has to worry about. Don't worry about the future. First teach them human intelligence. फिर उनको introduce करो कि आपके पास human intelligence है, ये लो एक artificial intelligence भी है. तो ये आपका अभी दोस्त बनेगा. हम पहले ही उनको artificial intelligence दे देते हैं.
Right.
So that's where we need to work on.
Right. Namrata, you also have something while we're on the topic of education. You also have something which is the ASCI Academy, which has been doing a lot of work in the area of educating children about advertising, including initiatives like the AdWise program. Could you tell us a little bit about the program and your aims and how is it helping children distinguish?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that question. In fact, it's a program that we're very, very passionate about. And we started this program, AdWise, about 6 months back, somewhere just before Diwali, I think. We've now covered about more than 6.5 to 7 lakh children across the country. Really, we're training kids in ad literacy. How do you distinguish between ad and content? What are influencer videos? New formats of advertising like Get Ready With Me and unboxing and various other
ASMR? Have you heard of anybody?
yes.
ASMR.
Yeah, so we're kind of introducing these topics to them, bringing up persuasion. We're working with kids from the ages of 8 to 15, grades 3 to 8 is are the children, and it's a program. That's right. In fact, this program is live in more than 15 states in the country. We aim to cover 1 million children before possibly by April or May. But really, we're looking at how can we really scale this program, create a train the trainer model. I think, yes, while digital literacy can start early, ad literacy, possibly the right age would be about 7 or 8 when they understand that what is influence and how are what is persuasion, and you can even teach them then the distinction between the two. So that's a program that's something that's very close to us.
Also, while this is not in the list of questions, I just have a question. Are we talking of parents who are very evolved and have resources versus a lot of single screen homes where a lot of co-viewing is actually happening, whether it is horror, whether it is Squid Games? I mean, I know parents, when I do the workshops, I know that parents haven't even set the Netflix distinct profiles. How many of you all have set different profiles for your children? Okay, I'm glad to see at least half of the audience audience. And while you set different profiles, have you password protected your profile? How many have done that? Okay, now that half gets into half, guys. So we have a problem. Because my point is that we are looking at screens as one part, but we're not looking at the whole. So, and in one of the guidelines and forms and policies that we were working on, we had a very interesting question that when we're looking at shared screen devices, how does screen time actually come into play, and then what is your child actually consuming? So when we're talking of co-watching, when we're talking of like Netflix 13 plus for US versus in India is very, very different. So how are we even laying out guidelines when there is a single TV or a single phone in the house? So is this a scalable conversation?
I disagree with you. In fact, in India, if you will see, even the economically backward
It's
families,
not a smartphone.
they have television sets and mobile phones, and each member of the family has a mobile
A
phone.
smartphone?
Yeah, most of them have them. Check that, because we had collected this data for something, and yeah, it was something to do with parenting during the pandemic. And we realized that yes, most of them do have smartphones. Each one has a handset, a smartphone, because that's quite cheap nowadays. You get all these models. And I was surprised to know most of them have an Apple. I mean, we see the askewed prioritization of our values. We are a country where health, okay, nutrition is so low, but we aspire to have a branded phone. So I don't think that's a big problem in most of these families. Yes, one problem which is there, Mansi, is that everyone's watching the same content on television. So, and that's where any kind of content comes in, and there is no censor board for television or OTT. So that makes it very, very difficult. For example, if I may just add, bullying has increased in schools. And we realized that body shaming is happening a lot. And a lot of parents came to us and said that television shows are contributing to a large scale, especially the comedy shows, where a comedian who's heavy set is made fun of. आपने कुछ बोल दिया, गेंडा बोल दिया, ये बोल दिया, वो बोल दिया. So a child who's watching it with parents who are laughing thinks this is entertainment. I can go and do it in school also to another child, and there I get pulled up. So that's what.
Interesting.
Mansi, can I add something from some anecdote from the consumer immersion as a part of this project? There are two examples that kind of come up. One is a very kind of upper middle class family, and where there the screen was not shared. There are two different sort of phones. Mother had her own phone, and daughter had, I think, class 10th, 9th, 10th, her own phone. But the Google was shared. She said she's only allowed YouTube, and because the Google is shared, so the algorithm kind of tells me. I mean, if the algorithm starts going off on my YouTube, I'll get to know, because the algorithm, she's sharing the algorithm. So that's her way of kind of trying to make sure that that she's in know of what's happening. Versus there's a very and kind of partly agree with Dr. Swati here. I mean, even very household of very modest means have phones today, may not have Apple always, but even a 10,000 rupees smartphone is good enough. Where I went to a very modest sort of household, two kids, one son was, I think, in class fourth or fifth, and the daughter was 3 year old. And while I was talking to the mother, there, the daughter, the small 3 year old, she took the phone and started kind of randomly scrolling and watching. I was curious. I said, what is she watching? The mother said, I don't know. She watches YouTube shorts and all. And I said, can you request her, if I can go through? She was watching some very random Korean couple kind of, videos, which, I mean, her mother had no idea about. So that's the kind of shared, I mean, and that was her mother's phone. And secondly, the universality that Namrata also kind of pointed towards, that we came across, was very surprising in a way, because what is trending in US, all kids, most of the kids that we met knew Brain Rot by heart.
Yeah.
Where is it coming from? That whole sort of universality means that they are kind of instantly being kind of given, I mean, access to in some way or the other.
Yeah. It's interesting that he mentioned YouTube very distinctly, because I think most parents don't set up their child's YouTube Shorts account, which is on the child's Google account, which is a minor's account. So we get a lot of people coming back with inappropriate content on Shorts, because that is viewed on desktop as well versus just a mobile device. In my concluding question to each one of you, what is the single most important step we should take in the next 2 years to strengthen media and advertising literacy among children?
I think, I would kind of, slightly, just pull out, and instead of just media literacy, because media literacy, one, media itself has kind of, evolved. I think it should be systems sort of literacy. They should be not just influence, not just persuasion that they are being kind of, made to be a part of, but other things, all the components of this system, they must be kind of, exposed to. They should know, that if they are being shown something, why are they being shown those things? What is the idea of, for example, this whole sort of, the whole, if you look at the colors and jump cuts and all, those kind of things, the YouTube sort of, thumbnails, etc. What are they doing? All those kind of things, and the content sort of the creators brand, for example, children get easily influenced by, by the brands created by, influencers. All the different sort of aspects of this system, they must be kind of made aware of, not just media. I think that's the most important thing that we can do to help children and parents as well.
I would say let's start celebrating imperfection in the families first and in the school, because we are constantly saying if you have so many likes, that means you are good. If you look so good, you are good. So that's why they are then getting hooked on this kind of content. It gives them that dopamine hike. And algorithm people, ad agencies know about dopamine. Parents don't know. You know, the simple aspect that when you take away a phone from the child crashes immediately into a tantrum. Why? Because you suddenly took away the child's dopamine hit. So let's become more dopamine conscious, so we know where our children are getting their dopamine hit from, so that dopamine doesn't become dope as they grow older. And let's celebrate imperfection.
I think I'll go ahead, take the point forward from what Dr. Swati just mentioned. And while we're looking at ad literacy for kids, I think it's important that we have adequate resources for parents as well. You know, we're looking at parents feeling overwhelmed with the kind of material content that kids are observing. I think it's extremely critical that this partnership is strengthened, which is organizations that are working towards ad literacy with kids, but also with parents and schools and organizations where these kids are going to spend most of their times. So if we can kind of strengthen the environment, providing resources which parents can lean on, I think that's when we're going to see some amount of change or shift. Many years ago, there was a whole movement where we taught our kids safe and unsafe touch.
Yeah.
It was extremely critical. It became a need of the hour, and suddenly everybody woke up to that. And I think we are at that critical juncture now where we say that let's wake up quickly for an ad literacy or a literacy, media literacy, a moment where we really awaken the entire ecosystem on really how do we strengthen this with literacy.
Yeah, they say village, no? It takes a village. It's what ma'am is saying. Let's let the village wake up.
Yeah. Okay. On that note, if you guys have any questions, please, we have 7 minutes, 14 seconds now.
This is for Dr. Swati Popat. You just said, let's celebrate imperfections. But, it's easy to tell a child, whatever, if he fails or whatever. How would you tell a parent it's okay to admit if your child fails, doesn't win, or doesn't get 100% marks? Isn't that teaching a parent also how to accept, imperfection, and that every child doesn't get 100% marks and every child doesn't become a Sachin Tendulkar? How would you go about doing that?
Absolutely. I love your question because many movies have tried to do it. But parents cried in the theater, then came out and did the exact opposite of what the movie was telling them.
When my son was in school, he was discovered as dyslexic.
Huh.
Okay, but luckily he went to a school which was very open about
yeah.
it and didn't ask a single question. So when we saw the movie, my son came out and he said, I should actually thank my mom and my principal for what I am today.
How lovely. How lovely. So the best way to change parents' perspective is to stick to it. And if all schools do that, if the government's education boards do that, it would help. My one thing that I've been telling schools for a long time, please don't put that stupid bulletin board that you all put that says so many children got 98% and 99%, because it's an insult to you, I said. Why? Because you have at least 50 children in the classroom. You only put 3 children's photographs. That means you were only successful for 3 children. So stop doing this nonsense in newspapers and all that 99% mila, ye mila, wo mila. We've started it with the early years now. When a parent comes and says, हमारा 3 साल के बच्चे को 100 तक गिनती गिनाओ, right? 100 तक आना चाहिए, बाजू वाली स्कूल सिखाती है. We taught them the concept of the difference between chanting and counting. So it starts with little bits. Children teach us a very important thing, baby steps. So let's start with baby steps. If all of us start making it a fashion that it's okay to be imperfect, I'm a living example of it in a day and age of fitness. Imperfection. You understand? So let's start celebrating it instead of everybody wanting to look the same, be the same, behave the same. That change will come. And if you're doing it with the right mindset, honesty, it will happen.
Super.
Okay, I have 2 comments. Neil Vasudeva. Firstly, I think on the parents' side, thank you for a most interesting discussion. I think the earliest learning for young people like Madhav is mimetic. So you will model what your parents do. So I think on the parent side, we have to be a lot more conscious of how we spend our time with our own phones. And hand on heart, if I look at my screen time now, it's upwards of 5 hours, and I'm sure that's the average. That's the low average of this room. So what parents will do, children will follow. It's no use saying karni and katni. You can't separate the two. On the education side, I wanted to plant a thought. Rather than be concerned about this as a societal problem, why not tackle it as any other education task? We know how insidious and how well crafted the algorithms are on the product side. Why not educate in classrooms as we teach people about other subjects how the algorithms work?
Yeah.
What Facebook does when you enter it, and I don't know what the kids are seeing nowadays, what Roblox does and what gaming does. I think these are very interesting subjects for the children because that's where they spend their time. And if they understand how the machine works,
Absolutely.
they will approach it as a more enlightened audience. It'll be easier for the parents to discuss that subject at home. It'll be easier for the teachers to enforce guidelines. And it'll be easier, especially for the children, to make more informed choices. So maybe we can start
Can I
by...
give you a hack to that? A parent hack? All of y'all try this, okay? This is like a tried and tested hack. Wives can try it on their husbands as well. Please go close to your child's phone and just speak everything that you want your child to follow. Okay? Because the algorithm's also listening, because the microphone is clearly not off on the app that your child is using. Do better screen time, how to eat healthy, you know, importance of fitness, the right books to read. Uska feed kal badal jayega. So
Yeah.
please try this. If you want to
But
go for
you
a...
have to spend a lot of time talking.
No. Trust me. The next feed, when you open your Instagram now, your feed would have already changed. I do this all the time.
Also,
And I-
keep in mind attachment times. I know I'm a phone this thing because our work depends on that. The moments at which attachment is required with a child, don't keep a phone, which means eating time, talking time, don't keep that phone.
I agree. I think you have to
There
set
is a
habits
third-
at
yeah.
home which will change the algorithm otherwise. You have to
Absolutely.
connect with your children.
There's a 10 rule in good parenting.
Absolutely.
10 minutes when the child wakes up, have contact with the child. 10 minutes when you are having food, have contact with the child. And 10 minutes before sleep time, have contact with the child. No screen time.
Very
Yeah, and also to just add to that, as a parent dealing with Gen Alpha, I would just say, how interesting are you making yourself? Because you can't blame them for watching screens when all you want to have is transactional conversations with them. Homework kiya, ye kiya, wo kiya. You are like a laundry list. Obviously, you're going to be
Absolutely.
unpleasing otherwise. And
Absolutely.
to your point of we don't follow, I mean, I really wish, Dr. Swati, that my kids would take at least some cognizance of the numbers that follow me, which they clearly disregard because I never post and go back and check how many likes have I got. So they completely just disregard the number of followers that I will have.
Hi, I'm Anushri. I have a question for Dr. Swati. Many parents are caught in a bind between, on one hand, they know that excessive screen time is going to harm their kid. But on the other hand, they also feel like if they do not expose their kid to technology, the kid might lag behind in terms of their peers. And this is not like a FOMO, it's like a genuine concern. Is this fear valid? And the second one is, in a world of instant gratification, how do you develop second order thinking in children so that they know that this might be like gratifying for this second, but in the longer run, it's not that.
You actually answered your own question. Because we don't have impulse control in ourselves, that's why we are not able to unhook ourselves from phones. Impulse control is what is missing. Check on Google, there is a marshmallow experiment, not the marshmallow building experiment, but the marshmallow experiment, where you put something which your child likes to eat in front of the child, and then tell your child that I'm going out, but you will not eat it till don't come back. Now, if the child is able to have that impulse control and not eat it, because you promised the child that if you don't eat it, I will give you 2. So that's called impulse control. That's called putting in control your instant gratification. And these children, that's the same thing that we use then when we grow up and become share market, na? Kab bechna hai, kab nahi bechna hai. Wahi hota hai.
Right.
You know, those people. So these are called life skills. And what was your first question?
Ma'am, they are caught between a bind. On the one hand,
So that's why I said don't ban anything. Teach children's brains how to learn, not what to learn. When that change happens, when you understand and accept it that yes, phones are going to be there, You can also create a bedroom for phones where the phones go to sleep at night. So, kind of a culture of a family. In the IB curriculum, there is something called a class agreement. A family needs to have a screen agreement, on which everybody agrees, everybody repeats that agreement every day. It becomes part of your culture. It's as simple as that. You won't struggle then.
Right.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a very, very good audience. And our time is up.